Hello, guys. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Bikini in the Brain podcast.
Woo.
I'm here with Ashley Kaltwasser,
That's
of course, my right hand man.
I'm on your left side though,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm a girl, so what the
Well,
heck?
Do I need to start the whole podcast over now?
No, we'll just wing it.
They can't see on podcasts.
Yes,
you gotta
but
get used to this.
for the viewers, I'm sitting on his left, and I'm a woman. I'm not his right hand.
You're so YouTube trained at this point of our life. And today we have a special guest.
Woo!
You want an intro?
Oh no, I want you to.
Okay, we have Anya Nicholson, who
Woo!
works with me at Team Elite Physique and came here from Boston. We're currently in Hollywood right now.
Yes, we are in Hollywood, and Anya's visiting and being a tourist.
Yeah, she's gonna go to the Mecca her very first time going to the Mecca of bodybuilding in Venice Beach. We're going there later today.
That's what's up.
But it brings us all to a important topic to talk about, which was kind of like the extremes of bodybuilding, the kind of some of the misconceptions of bodybuilding too, and then some of the things that bodybuilding brings, like some of the people that bodybuilding brings, which is people who are hyper aware of their physiques, hyper aware of their body image, and then also, bodybuilding attracts people that have had, eating issues before, because these are the people who are hyper aware. So I think it's important to like talk about it in positive light and in the negative light too, and how bodybuilding, helps people with this stuff. So anyway, so with that being said, we're here today with Anya, and you want to tell us a little about yourself, Anya?
Sure. So, as Adam introduced me, my name is Anya. I'm an associate trainer with Team Elite Physique, and I work under Adam. And when I first got into bodybuilding, prior to that, I actually dealt with a little bit of an eating disorder, and going into fitness really got me out of that. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about that and kind of delve into what fitness has done for me and for Ashley also. And yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'm on the same plane as that too, which is funny. I guess it's not funny, but it's as we started talking about this subject with Ashley too, we all were like, hey, I actually did that too. Like, what I started in bodybuilding myself because my sister called me fat when I was 12 years old after I broke my arm. And for a year, I didn't eat anything but lettuce. Yes, lettuce and ranch dressing and Diet Coke. That's what I ate, and occasionally some chicken breast. I didn't know anything about nutrition when I was 12 years old. But the extremes of bodybuilding, give us all that kind of like complex of being hyper aware. And back in the day, before we knew anything about nutrition, eating every 2 hours, or I'd freak out if I wasn't eating in 2 hours. I'd like pull over and find something. Right? Like,
You gotta set the alarm, wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So I think in everything that every sport has that extremes of it, and ours is one of the ones that unfortunately gets like the misconception of it. And you went through that too, right, Ashley, with your sports?
Yeah. So I actually never mentioned it before ever, but back in the day, high school and college days, I did struggle with a little bit of an eating disorder myself. I was bulimic, and not for the reason people might think. Like, I never thought I was overweight, and like I didn't have those kind of image issues. Like, it wasn't a body image issue. I had this super competitive mindset that I was like, how can I be a more efficient runner? And then it doesn't make sense now, but back in the day, my thought process was, well, the less fat I have, the faster I'll be because I'll be more efficient. So I kind of drilled that into my mind. And then one thing after another, I found myself like periods of time throughout my high school and college career, just like kind of like starving myself for a little bit. And then when I would eat something, I would feel kind of guilty about it. And then I would throw up. And I found out, like, this is kind of like TMI, I guess, but I found out that I was really good at like throwing up on command. Like, I don't have to do much. I can literally, like, even to this day, if you say, hey, just throw up, I can do that. Like, it's crazy. Anyway, TMI. So I don't know. I had this like obsession with food throughout. And I remember like, man, I just really took it to extreme. And basically food became an obsession to me. And I remember on Sundays, like when the ads came from the grocery stores, that would be like my favorite day because I would circle the food that I wanted to buy, especially if it was on sale. And then I would go to the grocery store and buy a whole bunch, and it was like a highlight for me. But yeah, like it came and go throughout my high school. It was kind of like more towards like the early years of high school because towards the last years of high school, like I became a better runner, and I kind of like, oh wait, I don't need to do that. That doesn't even make sense. I have no energy when I'm this small anyway. So I kind of figured that out. And then I got re-triggered again back in college because they said I was like a little overweight for track. I think I was probably honestly 128. So them telling me, oh, you need to lose weight, like I was like, wait, I know how to lose weight. So that kind of like re-triggered it. But, that didn't last as long in college as it did in high school. Like I mentioned before, it was like the earlier years of high school, like my freshman year, I want to say. But since then, I think the sport is actually done well because, first off, it taught me a lot about my body and what foods are actually healthy and how to like control my portions. And it kind of, you might have thought that like, wow, that's probably the worst sport for you to do if you've had this history, but not at all. It's actually taught me to like learn my body and what's healthy and what's not and how to lose weight in a way where you don't have to throw up or anything like that. So yeah, I haven't had any issues with that since. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that about me. But I know that also Anya has mentioned before in another video on YouTube, I believe, that you've struggled through something similar. Am I correct?
Yes. So, kind of similar to what Ashley went through. When I was in college, I started to go through a little bit of the mental side of eating disorders and putting off food. And earlier, and from there, started in high school. Back in like 2013 through 2015 was like the era where the skinny girls were popular. So we're in this age now where the fit girls, like everybody wants a booty, but back then it was different. I looked up to girls like Candace Swampole was a Victoria's Secret model, and all the girls in school would idolize them. And that's when my eating disorder tendencies started. It went from, not eating lunch to, sitting in the bathroom during lunch and not being around people. And when I was in college, similar to what Ashley went through with bulimia, I picked that up because it was an easy way for me to get food in my system and feel satiated without having to worry about the calories. And it really spiraled out for me, I think my sophomore year in college, when, everybody goes out and parties and drinks and just kind of engages in the normal social lifestyle of being a college student. So my junior year was when it got really bad. I mean, it was every day. And I started looking, going through my Instagram feed, and the more fit girls became popular, aside from being skinny. And I was like, oh, wow, I really want to look like that. But I was in this vicious cycle of, throwing up every day. And it's hard to get, once you get into that mentality, to get out of it because it becomes such a cycle. Immediately after you eat, you just want to throw up because you get into this cognitive replay, like I eat and I have to throw up. And from there, I was like, I don't know how to get out of this. And that's where fitness came in. And I started looking around and tried finding a coach. And from there, I was like, okay, what can I do to get myself out of this? And that's when I found the physique industry, where there are these girls that look so strong and so gorgeous, and they all eat food. And it blew my mind. I was like, how can they look like this and, still be able to eat? And that's when I found my first coach, and she was bulimic herself, and she helped me to get out of that cycle. I actually trained with her for 3 months leading up to training with Adam, and she got me eating again. And it was so hard because I wanted to look like that, and getting my calories in was like a force as it stretches out your stomach, and you're eating more, so you have like the distended stomach, and that was something I wasn't used to. So really getting used to eating was a big thing for me, and keeping down that food. So
I guess like with the sport for both of you guys, and actually it's funny, is it me too? It's so weird. Like everyone talks about bodybuilding like in this negative light that's not in bodybuilding. And it's so like everyone that's listening to this is in bodybuilding, bikini building, whatever, right? But everyone who's on the outside of it's like, oh, that's so unhealthy for you. You guys are doing so much. And then we all like played sports that caused these problems, because I was a wrestler. And I was 100 and like in high school, I was really, really small in high school. I'm actually like a really small guy by nature. I was like 135 pounds when I graduated high school. And when I wrestled at 119 weight class. And to keep that weight off, I just didn't eat. And that's just, you just don't know anything better. You know, you're just like, I just got to wrestle at 119. And my coach tells me, my wrestling coach, he's like, dude, if you can make 112, you'll be the state champion. And so, like, I grew up playing hockey, and all we did was try to win. You know, we won 3 state championships in California for hockey. And I was like, if I could win a state championship in wrestling, I'd have 2 state championships, and I'd be the man. You know, I'd have like a state champion hockey player and a state champion wrestler. I'm going to make 112. So I just didn't eat because they don't tell you anything. And so, like, it's funny. And then bodybuilding, though, you have to eat.
Yeah.
You know? And I talked to a lot of girls who are like, there's another girl I worked with before named Marissa, and she's really out there about this stuff too. But she was anorexic, but she liked lifting weights, and that's how she started with bodybuilding, was just strength training. And she was like, I don't get stronger unless I eat. So it like teaches these good habits for people.
It's like, in order to build that physique, you learn that, wait, you actually have to eat. You have to eat good, nutritious foods and like keep consistent with it. You know, I think it's pretty common knowledge now in the bodybuilding industry, in order to grow, you have to eat. So to build those curves, you have to eat, you know?
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of people listening to this, especially like our listeners are all mostly bikini, you know. I guess what are some of the ways you guys got around that? Because mine was never that severe. Mine was just, as soon as I was done with wrestling, I was good. I was like, okay, I can eat again, no big deal, you know? So it was like, for me, it wasn't that hard. It was only for my sport. But with you guys, it was more, well, I guess yours was your sport too, really, right?
Yeah, it was a different sport. But like I said, I kind of did that for efficiency. Because back when I was a freshman in high school, I didn't know any better. I didn't have like the knowledge, like, you know what I mean? The knowledge that like, wait, food equals energy. And in order to build muscle, you need food. In my mind, I was just like, oh, the leaner I am, I can run so fast if I'm lean. So I just wanted to be stealth and efficient, and it kind of did the opposite. I remember like I had zero energy, like waking up was such a task. And now I'm such a morning person. I'm like, yeah, let's wake up and get it done. So it's just like, you know, it does teach you a lot about your body.
Yeah, and just like as a reference, you guys, Ashley's 5'5", and she said that 127. Her coach told her she was
128. Yeah, 128-ish. I remember. Yeah. They said, I think you can lose a little weight, and then kind of triggered like, I know how to do that. And it wasn't as extreme in college as it was high school, but it's still like a little like one of those things can set you off.
That's just kind of crazy because considering your like Olympia stage weight will be like around 120, you know, like,
right? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I wonder how, it's like, I often wonder how my physique now would compare as like a runner. Like if I actually trained for it, if I'd be I think I'd be way more efficient now because I have some good muscle, you know?
Yeah.
But those fast twitch muscles are definitely sleeping right now. I haven't done plyos in a while.
So what, for you, Anya, like what was your, obviously like getting into weightlifting was your kind of like your saving grace, but what were like some of the struggles that you had to go through to get to that? Because me and Ashley had kind of a different way of doing it, so we can't really relate as much to yours. So what was some of the ways, like maybe some girls are out there struggling with this stuff and having that complex? And I have so many athletes, and I want to put this out there too, because I have so many athletes that struggle with this stuff, even on a minor level, all the way up to like a major level, where I'll say, hey, this week have a cheat meal, and they just can't do it. And they'll be like, oh, I had a cheat meal, but what I did is I doubled my rice and doubled my chicken. And I'm like, that's not, like, because they'll freak out if they have a burger, because it's like, no, that'll make me fat. Like, and the association with even just some foods that aren't like the healthiest foods for you, like, will instantly make you fat. And I get it, because when I have my cheat meals, I feel guilty. You know, I hate, like, I love the taste of it, but then when I'm done, I just feel fat. You know, I just feel like that gross, like, why did I do that? I didn't deserve that. I don't have, like, I'm not ripped, you know? So, so what were some of the things that like helped you get past that? I guess, what were some of the steps or what?
I would definitely say setting short-term goals and long-term goals was a big part of it for me. So short-term goal would be, you know, getting one meal down and keeping it down, you know, getting my protein and my carbs and my fats for one meal, and being able to understand what it felt like to feel satiated again versus too full and wanting to purge. So short-term, you know, keeping down meals, and long-term being building muscle. So constantly reminding myself, you know, what are my short-term goals? What are my long-term goals? What do I have to do to achieve that? And for me, that was always keeping down my meals, going to the gym and exercising. And through exercise, you feel like you can eat more because you're expending more energy. And So I would definitely say that was a big part of it. And then understanding that, like Ashley said, that food is fuel for your body, and being able to understand that you need that to grow. And if you want to achieve those goals physique wise, you have to go through certain things to get there. And yeah, I would definitely say that food is a big part of it. And the mentality of like understanding that food is nutrition, and you know, it doesn't have to play such a detrimental role in your life. So becoming less food focused.
And I think some of it, like too, is that people need to understand that our sport, it creates good habits for life, and that's always what I'm like big into, is explaining that to people, and like that bodybuilding makes people better. Like it's not just about making your body better, but it makes people better people, you know, at doing life. Because if you do a bodybuilding contest, and I said this in the last one too, it just teaches you discipline in a way that pretty much no other sport can teach you. You know, that's the thing about bodybuilding, and people that don't understand bodybuilding is they compare it. I don't know really what they're comparing it to. They have no reference. And we and Ashley were talking about this.
Oh, at the
earlier.
gym? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't understand what they're referencing when they say, oh, they're hyper obsessed with it, and that's all they think about. Like bodybuilding, it really is only about an hour a day of actual like practice, if you want to compare it to practice.
And let's not even just talk about bodybuilding, but even the lesser case of bikini, which is what Anya and I are, and who you deal the most with, bikini. And that's such a lower, how do I say it, level or of extremeness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like, man, I hear people complain all the time about the sport, like, oh, it's too extreme, or it's just too much, you know, and ranting about it. And, you know, it's as extreme as you want it to be. Okay. If we're looking even at a pro, like a pro tennis player, like Serena Williams versus a pro bikini, I'm guaranteeing you that Serena's not complaining about 45 minutes of cardio or an hour of cardio or even less than that, you know? She's out there probably, I'm guessing, weightlifting for a few hours, practicing for a few hours, doing drills, plyos, you know? And here we're complaining about like all this cardio, which, I mean, nobody wants to do all that cardio, but let's be real. It's as extreme as you want to make it. And I feel like these people that are complaining that it's so tough, were you really in a high-level sport? Because, I mean, I know that college track was harder than this. Let's be honest. I had 2-day practices for hours at a time. After practice, I felt like I had throw up. Like, it was intense. And now it's more like I'm definitely weightlifting more now than I did in track. And my meals are more regulated now. But still, I will tell you that that's probably harder to train for than what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think the misconception out there is so big, and I'm like, what's the big deal? Like people are, if they're doing it right. Now, if you're doing prep, and I want to say, I guess, right with like quotations, if you're doing it right, you really shouldn't have to do more than like an hour at the most. The worst case scenario, like an hour and 40 minutes of working out a day towards the very, very end of prep, and that's like an hour of working out and like 40 minutes of cardio, something like that. And if you look at all these other sports, like if you look at like Michael Phelps when he was training for the Olympics, like Ashley referenced him earlier, he had to eat, I think it was 15,000 calories a day just to be able to practice the way he practiced.
Yeah, can you imagine how much he's doing then to be able to keep his weight and still eat that? He's definitely working hard.
Yeah, it's way more than we do. And so we're like, people are complaining. And I'm like, so what's the big deal? You're working out for an hour and a half a day and you're eating healthy? Like that's the problem? Like, they're like, it's so extreme. I'm like, well, if you're doing it right, you shouldn't be eating in an unhealthy way where you're only eating, 600 calories. But you should be eating a decent amount of food. You're taking all the right vitamins and minerals to make sure you're healthy and all these things. And like, I don't really understand that whole concept. I'm like, it's even if you're not doing bodybuilding, you should be working out for at least like 40 minutes a day. So like, what's the big deal, I never really understood it.
And even looking at it in a perspective like injuries, let's be honest, if we're training for a bikini competition, the injury risk is a lot lower than other sports, okay? I'm never going to the gym thinking I'm going to blow out my knee or anything. But if we're talking about like a pro soccer player, that's a very real thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Or any contact sport. I mean, I guess you could say maybe we get little injuries maybe to like metabolism, I guess, is an injury. But if you want to go into that more, you can. But I would say for the most part, injuries are quite rare in this sport.
Yeah, I think that's a good like segue to go into like the next part of it, which would be like what is the actual like danger of it, right? Of like prep, and a lot of that comes down to and honestly, for the most part, everything's very like reversible because it's adaptive. The body's very adaptive, so. In everything that you do, the body's adaptive though. So if you think about a sport, when you first play a sport and you're trying to, let's say, throw a football, like you're really bad at throwing football, but you get better at it not just because you're learning the skill, but because your body's becoming more adapted at that actual throwing form. So because it becomes more of like a muscle memory thing, your body's more used to it, then you get better at it. But that's an adapted thing. So yeah, you're adapted now with better at throwing. But is that bad? No, you can throw better, but people don't look at it the same way as like bodybuilding. In bodybuilding, you're adapting by building muscle, so you're getting bigger, right, by building more muscle, and that's an adaptive process. But also, your metabolism will adapt too. So if you're eating less calories for longer periods of time, you'll get this thing called adaptive thermogenesis, where your body starts reducing the total amount of like caloric expenditure and how like it metabolizes calories and whatnot, because of you're going too low in calories. So the body adapts that way. So people are like freak out about it, but that's a reversible thing if you just do it the right way. So like, yeah, every sport's going to have its adaptations. When you first, this is an example I like to use too. When you first start walking, you very first start walking and you're a little baby and you'll see these kids and they're wobbly and they fall over all the time. And, they're just trying to learn how to walk. Well, after they're walking, they have become really adapted to that movement. And because they become adapted to that movement, they're more efficient at it and they burn less calories doing it because they're less wobbly, they're not falling now. And they're more efficient. Well, the same thing happens with your metabolism. When you eat less calories for longer periods of time, it becomes more efficient. It's adapted to what you're doing to it, and yeah, it happens. It's if you want to call it like a kind of an injury, I think that's a good way of putting like a little bit of an injury, like a temporary injury. Now, it's the people who don't get out of that and stay with those low calories for very, very long times is where it becomes like a real big problem. And I think that's like the important thing to go into next is like the topic of post show like blues and post-show weight gain and like how do we deal with that. And like I love having you as a reference because I mean honestly, like who has got more experience?
Yes.
Anya's working on getting her pro card, so this is good for her to hear too. Like, and I'm sure everyone out there wants to know, how does someone like Ashley, I don't even know how many shows you've done. I know you've won 19.
No, man. Because all the amateur shows I never counted. Like I don't know how many I did. A lot. But yeah, I've experienced it all. Like rebounds and really smooth transitions into the next show too. It's like it's so interesting how the body works. And post show rebound can definitely get to you, man. It's like if you feel like, oh, I just worked so hard, and then like, oh, I just, had a huge cheat meal, and now I'm all bloated, and you feel like crap. I've been there, man. But something I've really learned is like, well, first off, the immediate weight that you'll get maybe like the day or so after the show, it's water weight, but it does play with your mind. But you definitely feel like crap, No one wants to feel bloated, and it's like, you just feel sluggish. But I've really learned to control that afterwards. Like I don't like that feeling, and I kind of like slowly ease into it. Like I might have a few days off, but I'm not like binging during that time, Because to me, it's just I know how I'm going to feel the next day, so I'll slowly introduce more foods back in. And I know that everyone's different in their approach to that. But I just learned it's not worth it. I'll have some burger fries and then have a few other cheats throughout the day, but it's nothing like a whole cake or like a box of Oreos or anything like that.
Yeah, I've actually seen that Oreo thing go down quite a few times. Actually, it's so funny. It's like here's a tip for you guys real quick after the show, because this happens so many times where a girl will like, oh, I'm just gonna bring Oreos for like the whole team, and like I got all these crazy different Oreos, and they'll get like 3 different because all these Oreos are nuts now.
Yeah,
dude, what's up with the Oreos? It's so funny. So they load up on these different flavors of Oreos, and then like the next thing you know, like the team will take like 2 from them of one flavor or whatever, and that's it. And then the next thing you know, by the end of the night, they ate the whole sheet of Oreo, like the whole thing of Oreos. So just take a few.
Yeah,
each flavor with you.
I see people bring it backstage even for themselves, and they harvest all this this collection of treats and candy. Maybe they put it either in their gym bag for backstage or at their hotel room. And they buy things as if they're never going to be able to access it. But you know what? You don't need to do that. Promise it's going to be there tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
you don't need to collect them all because that's like a slippery slope. And then you just, one becomes two, two becomes three, and then you got the whole box down, and then you feel like crap afterwards. So I highly suggest you don't do that.
Yeah, I've done it post show too, and I don't know if you went through anything post show like that where you.
Yeah, first show when we went to Big Lots and I got all that candy.
Oh, big
yeah. So I've done it twice where I rebounded pretty bad after a show,
Yeah.
and it was funny because one time I was like, I just want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It was like my 5th show too. I was already pretty experienced, and I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. And I had a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I was like, that's all I want is peanut butter jelly sandwich. And then I was driving home, and I saw Chipotle. I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do Chipotle instead of the sandwich. And so like, I went to Chipotle. I brought my bag in there with me. I had a burrito, and I was like, you know what sounds good? Like, so a full burrito when I haven't been eating that much, And then I was like, I'm gonna do chips and guacamole, and then I did chips and guacamole with it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do the peanut butter jelly sandwich anyways. I had 2 peanut butter jelly sandwiches, all in one sitting. And then I had this pack of Flamin' Hot Cheetos that I wanted to, and I ate the whole bag. Before I was done, I ate all that in one sitting. And then I also ate my rice cakes, which were like caramel rice cakes.
The rice cakes.
Like the backstage like pump rice cakes, with peanut butter on them. And I was like, so I'm driving home, and then I threw up, not because I was like trying to, just because I couldn't eat the food. I was like throwing up. And I was like, you know what? This is it for me. I can't do this anymore. This is the last time I binged like this. And it was like full on.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even realize it. Well, I guess that's a binge, right? Is that what it is? I don't know. So
you want to like explain exactly what happens during a post-show rebound, because a lot of people don't know, and I know you are the best one to explain. Why does your body hold on to water afterwards, or why do you just feel like crap afterwards after having all this food that you haven't all at once?
Yeah, it's it's a hard one. So here's the thing, like when you're going through these processes of getting really, really lean, you got to understand your body doesn't want to be as lean as you are. It's a very vulnerable state for you to be this lean in bodybuilding, like because you want to be lean and you want to be muscular at the same time, and those are 2 of the things the body does not want to do. And let's explain that. So you being muscular and lean is counterintuitive to what the body's designed to do. And you being muscular, the reason that the body doesn't want to do that is because you burn more calories. So you burn more calories because you have more muscle, and the body is less efficient now at moving throughout the day. And the body doesn't care anything about how you look. That's zero like relevance to how the body or really even perform for that matter. The goal of the body is to just live. It's just trying to live. So you having no body fat means you have no energy reserves. So the body doesn't know that, hey, we're not living in a cave like we were, 200 years ago or whatever, and we don't know when the next food's going to be available to us. Like, so the body doesn't know that it's going to get food so easily as we get it these days. So you being lean and muscular is counterintuitive to what the body wants to do. So it's going to do everything in its power to stop that from happening. So when you are eating like a lot less, the body will find a way to kind of tell you, hey, tell you you're hungry and you should eat. And so there's these 2 hormones in your body that kind of balance each other out, leptin and ghrelin, which is basically like your hunger and your satiation hormone, if you want to call it that. So one of them tells you, hey, you're full, stop eating. And the other one tells you, hey, I'm hungry, you need to eat. So when you go through this whole thing of bodybuilding, and you're really, really like at the end of the route, and you're hungry, and what happens is a few different things. One, those 2 hormones are telling you to eat, and then when you eat, it's telling you you're not full, and so you can eat way more than you have been before because there's no deadline now. There's no like, hey, there's not a show tomorrow, so I can eat whatever I want. There's no like penalty for it. But also what's happening is your metabolic rate is lower than it has been pretty much the entire prep because you're at the very final stretch of it. So now you have all these things happening. You have extreme hunger, you have appetite that won't be, the body telling you you're not full, and you have an adaptive metabolism that you're paying a higher price for the calories that you eat, because now maybe you're burning 1,200 calories. In the beginning of the prep, you were burning 1,500, 1,600. So now the calories that get stored as fat is a lot higher price than you would have paid if you were to eat like that at the very beginning of prep. So you have all these things working against you, and then on top of that, you're eating so clean that whenever you eat anything, that's not clean, your body starts like getting like an inflammatory response or extreme water retention response because it's higher sodium than you've been used to, and it just sticks with you for like a week. I've seen some really bad cases of like post show like blow up where you're just water retention, like to the point where like I've seen a couple guys where they like had to go to the doctor and get like diuretics because like they were so much water retention. I knew one guy gained 13 pounds. My friend Ryan, he ended up getting 30 pounds, and he was a little dude. Like he's like not little, he's a light heavyweight or middleweight bodybuilder, but he's like 5'4", I think he's 5'4". He put on 30 pounds because he ate, and he said I didn't even eat that bad. He ate a lot, but he didn't eat that. It was just high in sodium and stuff. And he just blew up, and that was like a freak show thing that like shouldn't have happened. And he actually had to go to the hospital for it. It was crazy, like because he was just felt so bad. So they gave him like an IV and diuretics, and then like he was fine a couple days later. But that was like that's an extreme case, and he didn't go that crazy. It's a really weird thing that happened. But you hear about it all the time. So that's what's happening with it is so. Like, I guess we go into the next thing, which is, how do we avoid that, and what's the like proper amount of, post-show like, weight gain?
I'm sure a lot of people out there are wondering, well, of course I'm going to have a cheat meal after, but what is the proper way to ease back into real life or after a show, normal eating? Because I hear the term reverse dieting getting thrown around a lot, and I know you've dispelled like the myth that it's not what you think it is per se. Is that the route you're going, where you wanted to go with this?
Yeah, it is.
I think a lot of people want to know about that more, because I was surprised as well what I thought it was and what it actually is.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic. So it's a good topic, though. I think people need to understand that. And actually, when I talked about this once before, I got so much positive feedback from it because people just didn't understand.
Because people see posts about it, and they're taking it the wrong way. Because what you think it is, reverse dieting, how you think it works, isn't exactly how you should be doing it, because the name is kind of deceiving a little bit.
Yeah, and I think where it started, and it was done in trying to help the community. And actually, I think it was the main person who started was Lane Norton. And Lane, I love Lane. He's like he's kind of like, I just love his stuff because he's about helping the athlete, and I'm about helping the athlete and kind of putting the coaches who are hurting people like on their heels, like, oh crap, we put out information that's exactly against what I'm doing to people, So big props to Lane for continuing to do his thing. But this is one of the things where he was kind of like the first to kind of come out with recognizing the fact of like, hey, how do we deal with this post-show stuff, and how do we, like, I guess what should we call it to let the general masses understand it. And so he basically called dieting, and then reverse dieting is kind of what he called it. And as the science was back then too, he was kind of cutting edge on it. And really, I don't even know if at that time people really knew how to do it. So reverse dieting might have made the most sense at that point before more research dove into it. So he called it reverse dieting, and everyone understood it right away. Because he could have called it like correctional post-show dieting, but that's who's going to really understand that when it first came out. So he called it that, and people kind of understood, and it helped a lot of people out. But the problem with is the name itself of reverse dieting. People thought, okay, if I reverse diet, I just do everything in reverse, and that's what we constantly get. And that's not how he meant it to be delivered. He just meant it to be understandable to the general person.
Yeah. So people took it too, like literally. The name reverse dieting took it extremely literally.
Yeah, extremely literally. I had people that their coaches told them too, because the coaches don't know. They just kind of like, oh, I guess we're doing this reverse dieting thing, so I just do everything in reverse, and then I could charge twice as much for a prep because now I get them 16 weeks, I get them for 32, because just tell them to do the same diet in reverse. Or I have coaches that would just leave their clients at the end and then tell them, just do exactly what you did, but do it in reverse. And like that was literally the plan they give them. And a lot of people are doing it. And they're like, oh, I'm up 100 calories now from my post show. It's been a month, and now I'm going to go another 100 calories up the next one. And I think that's where like the problem comes in, like a big problem comes in from that. So let's get that information out there. When you go into a caloric deficit of any deficit, and let's explain what that caloric deficit is. So if your body burns 1,500 calories a day, well, let's make it easy. If your body burns 2,000 calories a day and you eat 1,500, well, that's a caloric deficit of 500 calories, 2,000 minus 1,500. Okay. If you do a show and you're eating, let's say, 1,200 calories at the end of the show, which is very common and still in the healthy range of calories, if you're burning 2,000, but you're eating 1,200, and then a week later after the show, you raise it to 1,300, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, you go to 1,400, and then you keep doing that process, and you add 100, 200 calories each time, That would be reverse dieting. That would be reverse dieting. But you got to remember, you burn 2,000 calories is what we talked about. So when you start introducing less calories than 2,000, even if you went from 1,200 to 1,400 to 1,800, you're still in a caloric deficit. So instead of going on a diet for a 16-week prep and you reverse diet for, let's say, 12 weeks, well, now you just added 12 more weeks of dieting to the 16 weeks. You didn't go through any correctional process yet. You're still dieting.
Yeah, it's still in a deficit.
Yeah, so whenever you're in a caloric deficit, no matter how small that deficit is, even if it's a 100-calorie deficit, your body's still going to adapt to it. Because remember what we talked about, the body doesn't want to be lean and muscular. So the body has to adapt to those things. So any deficit whatsoever is going to require an adaptation by the body. It's going to go through this thing of thermogenic adaptation. Okay, so that is what you want to get away from. So the first thing you want to do when you finish a show is to go right to maintenance calorie. That's the only time repair is going to happen. Okay, so the only time your body's going to heal itself. So what I recommend doing for people when they finish a show is I go through this thing called a post-show diet, a deload workout, and have everyone have like a cheat meal after the show. But the cheat meal is more about like just satiation, you know, just like enjoying it. But it's just like, it's like one though. It's just one meal, get it out of your system, and then go right to your post-show diet the next day, which is, it's a lot higher calories. So if someone started off burning 2,000 calories and they got all the way down to, let's say they got crazy and had to go down to like 1,100 calories or something, that would obviously be someone who's a female who's like 5 foot nothing, or like, really, really small person at 1,100 calories. And then, maybe she's not burning 2,000 calories now. Maybe she's burning, her new metabolic rate is 1,800. We'll start her off at, 1,800 right away, right after the show. And you shouldn't go through any weight gain because you're at maintenance calories. You might fill out a little bit because you still had some carbs to fill out and whatnot, and your frame was still a little bit flat from the hard dieting. But that's where you should go right after it. And that's when you're going to start going through the correctional phase. And then that's when you're going to not lead to long-term problems and long-term hormonal adaptations and all these different things too. So, hopefully that reaches some people.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I've seen so many people post it in the way that we think it is. But thank you for the clarification. I was definitely one of those people that thought like, oh, reverse, that means exactly but opposite. And I was like, how are people doing this? This is hard. How? I feel still so like I'm depleting. But yeah, this is great. And I'm so glad that I have an awesome coach here like Adam that's able to explain that. He's so knowledgeable. Like you're so like nerdy science guy. It's awesome in a good way.
Yeah, I've done this I've done this my entire adult life. So if I'm not good at it by now, I don't know what it would take. That's what I tell people. They're like, how do you get so, like, how do you remember all this stuff? And I'm like, dude, I've been doing this since 16 every day. Like, if I haven't figured it out by now, I'm never going to.
Right.
So that's why it's not really that impressive when that's all you do for decades, So going into, I guess we'll close off here pretty soon, but going into like post-show stuff, and now you guys are on two totally different playing fields, like Ashley, you're, at that world level right now, getting ready for the Olympia. And Anya's like just past the local scene, going and getting ready into nationals in Florida in a few months here. Like, I guess, what are some of you're super close to the show right now. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that like help you guys stay motivated in the two different parts that you're at? Because Anya, you're in off season, like knowing that, hey, I'm going to have to start cutting soon. I can't let my weight get too high up or my prep's going to be too hard, which is something that Ashley, you've gone through, 40 times at this point. Yeah. And now you're going through it your first time. So what are like some of the things, like the mental alerts that you guys give yourself, like when you're finishing a show and you know that you're going to have another show coming up and you're trying to manage your off seasons? Like, what's your guys' like, what have you learned and what can you help people with on that?
Right. Well, like I had mentioned earlier, I know by now not to go crazy after a show because it's not worth it. I don't like feeling bloated and blah. So I don't know. Every time I come off a show, I'm so like excited. Usually, I'm like, oh, I love this feeling. I love how I look, and I think it's like an understanding. Like, I would never want to do like harm to my body. I don't want to, like, I've worked so hard for this. I want to treat my body right. I'm not going to go crazy afterwards. Be kind to your body. And I think for me too, just generally being like able to set another goal in the near future kind of keeps my head straight. Like, oh, wait a minute, we got to compete again in a few months. And I know not everybody's like that, but I'm kind of like one of those weird type out there. I love competing. Like, I'm looking forward to my next show already, even if I haven't finished my first one. So I'm not like dreading like, I think a lot of people like have this like, oh, I can't wait till after the season's over, I can finally eat this. Like, I don't even think about that. I don't think about that. I think like, oh, I can't wait to finish the show, and then, oh, my next show can be this, and I can improve this. And I'm always thinking about like my improvements and what I can do better. So that kind of steers me in the right direction, as far as like coming off a season and working towards my next one. Because I just love what I do. I love competing, and it's like my life, and it's like gives me focus, and I don't know, gives me meaning in a weird way. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but
No, I think that's cool. That's good. That's how I feel with my work too.
yeah,
Like,
and it kind of sounds like selfish, I guess, but ultimately, I love being able to compete not just for myself, but like other people are watching, and maybe I can motivate people, or maybe they're out even listening to this podcast and they picked up something and they're inspired, or they're going to fix something and they're going to do better, like with their diet. There's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah.
So it's good that both of us, all of us here, have that platform that like, we're able to reach some people, maybe change their lives for the better. And that's really meaningful to me. So being involved in the sport in general and being able to deliver this kind of content, it's very satisfying. Like, I could have definitely used it when I was just an amateur bikini competitor, or somebody even looking just to get fitter. So it's kind of like that overall, like, you have a platform, you have a place, use it to your advantage, and just tell the world that like it's gonna like be okay and you can do it. And I like to motivate people and inspire people. So if somebody gets motivated from something I posted or this podcast, that just means the world to me.
yeah, I think that's cool. I think it's a really cool way to look at it. I guess that's kind of, we both share that. It's just in different ways. Mine's like the coaching, yours is like the athlete, it's cool. And so you're getting ready for nationals pretty soon, and you just came off your show, or making some small improvements to your physique before you go there. How are you in the off season, where you're like, what's your thought process in thinking things through, on your meals and your post show stage weight, and how you're trying to balance that all out? Like, where are you at with that, and how is it kind of go into your day to day?
So day to day, I would say I've definitely taken a diet break. I will be honest. I've come off of my last show. I think it's been about a month and 2 weeks now. And I would definitely say taking a diet break is something for me that I like need to do, and then hopping back on. But like Ashley said, keeping a goal in mind. What do I need to do going into my next show to do better? Keeping a constant goal and going from, okay, I'm in prep, I need to lean out for a show, to, okay, I'm in off season, now I need to build some more muscle and sculpt areas that need more work. That way I can go into my next show and present a better package. So that definitely plays a big part of off season for me, is reevaluating my goals and really figuring out, what do I need to work on to be better, and then looking at the current trends in bikini. And like Ashley said, she loves being in prep. I love being in prep too. I definitely agree with her on that. And kind of keeping that mindset of, okay, I have another show coming up. What can I do to keep my career going and get better at this? Bikini is always evolving. And, it's a constant, I wouldn't say keeping up with the Joneses, but staying in.
Keeping up with the bikinis. Keeping up with the Olympians.
Keeping up with the Olympians. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Keeping up with things and bringing in a better physique and following, what the other girls are doing that are being, are successful. And definitely reevaluating goals is a big one. And, staying true to yourself with your goals is, straying from my diet has been a big one for me. And I have to hone my goals and kind of reel things back in and be like, okay, now I need to get back on my diet. I need to start training hard again and get to where I want to be. So it's definitely a big part of it.
So it's kind of like goes back to the deload week type of thing, like deload. And I think everyone needs a deload, because you work so hard towards the end of prep that, a lot of people will just tell you, hey, take a week off. Most people will just say, hey, only work out for like 3 days the next week and kind of eat close to your diet, but don't go crazy, that type of thing. but I think everyone needs that little break. And I think that the conception that you get a lot of hardcore, it's a weird industry because you have a lot of like hardcore bodybuilders that become coaches and then they coach females.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool and all, that you do it because you know a lot and you should be coaching people if you know a lot, but you're not taking into account that they're not hardcore bodybuilders. They're doing things in a totally different way than you're doing it. And maybe they're just getting into the sport and you've been into it for 20 years that, you can be hardcore and never take a diet break, work out 7 days a week. But maybe some of these people that you're working with only started a year ago and they're not at that mindset yet, or maybe they never will be or never want to be. But you like put this pressure on them that if you take a week off or you take 3 days off, you're weak, and like you start thinking that you're failing or something, and that's just not the case. Your body sometimes needs it. Listen to the body, and if that's going to make you better and stay more motivated in the gym, then do it. I think that's the best thing.
Definitely, and mentally too. I think because it's like, man, if you're sometimes it's like even simple things like weighing your food, you just get sick of it. I think there was a time last year I got sick of chicken too. It's nice to have like a little break, like you don't have to think, like, but obviously nothing out of control. But even like little things like I'm just gonna have steak this week instead of chicken, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or not weigh my food, and you've allowed me to have a few breaks after my shows because I get a lot of questions like, wait a minute, do you go into off season now or do you start prepping for your next show, or how does that work? So it's always like a case to case basis depending on yourself and when is your next show and what your goals are. But I know that I take little breaks, nothing crazy. I don't get out of control, but it's nice to just like, okay, not weighing my food this week, or I'm gonna eat steak and beef, things like that. Yeah, little treats here and there.
And we just eyeball food for a week or whatever, and never go crazy. But I think that's a good thing too. This will be probably our last part of this is the post show, like what's realistic post show, what's this in season, off season stuff, and like what's that all about. And so as a coach, I get a lot of people who reach out to me and they're like, I want to do, I'm in season, and I want to do just like a 16-week prep, and then that's it. And that's all they think about. Oh, I'm gonna be lean enough, or all I need to do 12-week prep. And that's all they think about. And I'm like, well, what about after that? Why is our mindset just in this 12-week period, 16-week period? And then after that, there's no thought process. So that's the same. The people who have that mentality are the same people who continually chase their last physique. And I call them physique chasers. And physique chasers are someone who does a show. They prep really hard, diligent for 16 weeks. They're an awesome student. And then you see them again prepping for another show the next year, and then they look exactly the same. And then the next year they look exactly the same, and eventually they stop because they never got farther in their career. And I'm like, why does that happen all the time? And it happens so consistently. Like there's so many people who go through that. And it's always because the mentality is I want to be good for 16 weeks, not go through the process of going through the off season where there is no such thing as an off season. It's you're getting ready for a show and getting lean, or you're getting ready for a show and getting better. There's always getting ready for a show though. It's whether it's now or a year from now and you're trying to make improvements and whatnot. But I think that the people who go through this cycle of chasing their last physique, gaining 20 pounds after a show, and repeating it over and over again, not really making the improvements, I think that because their preps are so hard that they just like need to get away from it. And those are the same people that are like, I just needed a month off. I needed a month of dieting off.
Or the people that think they need to bulk in bikini. Yeah. And I think you mentioned it too, like, just put on the weight so you can gain all that muscle. It's not necessarily how it works. You don't have to bulk. Maybe, bodybuilders do it more so than bikini people, but I still see bikini competitors say, I have to bulk. Yeah, exactly. I'm in bulking season.
Yeah, exactly. And when you talk about putting on like skeletal muscle, like actually putting on muscle, like it's such a small amount of muscle you're going to put on. It's grams of muscle per week that you're going to put on. You're not putting on pounds of muscle per week, especially as a female bodybuilder. You're just not going to put on that much muscle. So this whole like bulking thing in the off season, like we try to keep. So Ashley's very, very high level, and we try to keep her about 8 or so pounds above stage weight. That's like the goal, and that makes all the preps so much easier. So with my athletes, I try to tell them stay around 6 to 8% above your stage weight. That's an ideal weight to go from in the off season, because it's going to make every prep easier. You're going to make good improvements in the off season, and every prep's only going to need to be 10 to 12 weeks. So that's kind of like my mindset on it. I don't know if you guys have any other input on that, but the main thing is if you choose to do this sport and you're choosing to do it at a high level, which is probably why you're listening to this, that's probably gonna be like 90% of the people listening to this. Like I think it's in your best interest to just do a show and then improve on that physique to the next show and improve on that physique to the next show. And when you start building on a physique over and over again and making it better, that's when you get people like Ashley over here, who has said herself she just loves competing.
Yeah, I love it.
And indirectly, because she loves competing, she's probably just never gone so far away that she made so many improvements that she got to be the best in the world, 3 times over.
I learn every show. There's always something to fix. Yeah. Even at my, highest point, always something to fix.
So I guess with that would, just lead us to the point of, hey, maybe my off seasons need to be a little bit different. Maybe off seasons need to be a little more diligent. Maybe I shouldn't be going so high in calories. And now maybe I know how to diet the right way so I can actually do it,
right.
Post show instead of like going through the reverse diet and it being so sucky, because it doesn't need to suck. That's the thing about prep. I think that we continuously try to push is that prep doesn't need to suck.
And I just want to put this out here too regarding diet. I mean, isn't it awesome we live in a day and age where there's more like diet friendly foods available? If you have a craving, there's like, just an example, like 20 different dessert flavored gums. Like there's different things you can do. And I will say this, honest to God, from eating healthy for a period of time, I don't really crave unhealthy things. Like I really don't. I'm never like, oh man, I want this whole basket of loaded French fries or nachos. I don't. And you've been with me post show too for like cheat meals. I don't go crazy. I don't have those intense cravings because I've like taught my taste buds differently. And I've taught myself how to cook my food that tastes pretty good. And there's so many ways around like dieting. It doesn't have to be boiled chicken breast and asparagus. There's so many different ways.
And one of the things that I think as probably most of our listeners will be U.S. citizens, but when I have people fly in from overseas, we have some overseas clients that'll come in, and like Phoebe's a perfect example of one of them. Who's an awesome pro bikini competitor, but the first thing like we usually do is go to a grocery store, and then she just goes nuts. Like everyone goes nuts from overseas. Like I had a girl from Poland in the other day, and they're at the grocery store, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have these, you have these, you have these. Like I can't believe we don't have any sugar-free this, or we don't have any fat-free this, and I'm like, really? You guys don't have any of this? They're like, no, it's you just don't. We just don't have it in our grocery stores. So like as Americans, we're really spoiled with what's available with all these low-calorie things that. Like poor Phoebe has to just doesn't get any of these like tastes, like unless she comes to America, and so she's dieting like way harder than we're dieting because we're eating sugar-free Jellos because we needed something sweet. But she doesn't have sugar-free Jellos over there like ready to go, so consider yourself fortunate that we live in that day and age for sure.
And protein shakes taste so much better now than they did like 10 years ago.
So little tricks. We're gonna do a video on the little tricks like spicing foods and whatnot.
I have so many of those little tricks.
Yes, so many. We'll do that one day. That'd
be awesome. That'd be a good video too, I think.
Yeah. So I guess with that, we're signing off.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for watching. And Anya, thank you so much for being our guest and sharing your story. And I know you're gonna help a lot of people out there that also are going through something similar.
Yeah, and then on Instagram, you're Anya Marie Fit.
Yes.
Correct? You can reach out to her. She also does vlogs. That's it. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, and you're at Team Elite Physique.
I'm at Team Elite Physique. And then at Ashley K Fit on Instagram. We all have YouTube channels because we're all like social thirsty for views.
So share this podcast with your friends.
Share it, bro.
And your family.
I'm thirsty for likes. Thirsty for hearts and likes. So that's it. So thanks so much for listening.
You.
Remember, this podcast is geared by the audience. So wherever direction you guys want it to go is where we're going to go with it. So send us your ideas. Shoot them to me and Ashley through DM. Slide in through our DMs, bro.
Yeah, do it. My DMs are lonely. Send me ideas. We want to know what you guys want.
And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for listening. And I promise we'll get better at this as we go.
Oh, come on. We're good now. Bye.